From the beautiful Finger Lakes region of upstate New York, this is the Dental Lighthouse Podcast. We take questions from anyone in the dental profession and discuss what it takes to win not only in dentistry, but in life. Business, leadership, relationships, parenting, health and wellness, money management, nothing is off limits on the Dental Lighthouse Podcast. I'm Jason Tanoory, your host, and have over 20 years of experience to pull from. Learn from my mistakes and let me help you collapse time so you can become the best version of yourself. Yo, welcome back. Dr. Jason here at Dental Lighthouse Podcast, and I'm not going to bore you with one of my rambling episodes today, not going to bore you with musings of things that I wake up in the middle of the night with, but instead I'm bringing you a marketing expert, someone that is well qualified to educate me and hopefully educate you guys, and I'm excited to bring him on the show. We had a little bit of a conversation before we hit record, and I know I'm going to get a ton of value out of this conversation, and I know you will too. I'm a little bit worried ahead of time because his last name I could probably pronounce incorrectly, and it's no sign of disrespect, but I'm going to try my best. So it's Mr. Chris Pistorius, right? From Mr. Chris Pistorius from Kickstart Dental Marketing. So, Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks. That was kind of the drunk version. You kind of slurred the last name to make sure you got it right. I appreciate that.
You're very, very welcome. You're very, very welcome. So marketing is like for dentists is this like ambiguous kind of whole of, what should I do? What should I not do? And I'm blessed to have a number of coaching clients. And when they start to ask me marketing questions, my hands start to sweat a little bit, and I start to get, my heart rate goes up because I have no idea if even the advice I'm giving them is the correct advice. So we can get as granular as you want, but I'd like to start off with just kind of hearing what you typically are, what's your sales pitch, for lack of a better term, when you're engaging in a prospective new client on what you do and how you and Kickstart can make a difference in the journey of these dentists.
Yeah, it's interesting that, I've been doing this for a while now. And what I've found over the years, and actually more recently in the last 5 years or so, is that there's a lot of dentists out there that don't need more marketing. They don't need more traffic. Sometimes what they really need is an internal checkup and an internal audit of when these leads come in, how are they being handled? From the trigger point of whether they call or whether they fill out a form or a chat, whatever it might be, from that point to the point to where they would potentially be scheduled, checkpoint and audit every one of those and make sure of, we've got a whole audit checklist I can share with your audience, but make sure you have speed to lead. Like these leads are being processed and responded to within 5 to 10 minutes. Anymore, if you're past that, your possibility of getting them in the chair drops dramatically. Make sure that you have multiple ways for them to do online scheduling if possible. AI does provide us with some technology that can help with that as long as you use it carefully. How's your front desk handling the calls? Are they so overwhelmed that they sound rushed on the phone? It's all of those things is what I would look at first. When a client hires us, typically we can increase their new patient flow by 10 to 20% just by kind of fixing the things that I talked about before we even dive into adding more marketing dollars or adding marketing at all. So I don't know that I have a great sales pitch, but that's usually where I start with potential new clients.
Love that answer. So typically when I break down relationships with my coaching clients, we'll look at reports or we'll look at what we call a weekly scorecard. And one of the things that they love to track is new patients. And let's say our goal is to average 10 new patients a week. And as soon as they start to see a trend that number is not reaching 10, to the point I think you're trying to make is they're like, okay, I need to increase my marketing budget.
Right.
To which I kind of push back on, just like you did. So if the first thing that we need to do is make sure that we're operationally efficient with the leads that our marketing company or that we're just generating internally, what are some benchmarks that you're looking at, specifically call answer rate, conversion rate, and the ability to get a patient in within a timely manner? Like for your particular clients, what is success versus not success?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have some benchmarks. We've been doing this now. This is our 17th year, so we have a lot of historical data on kind of where our clients should be. We were actually just working on this the other day. An average, for instance, an average practice will close about 35 to 40% of new patients that come in, brand new patients off the street, find them on Google or whatever it might be. Where we want them to be is closer to 60 to 70%. And when I say that, I mean on the first call, because if they get off the phone, your chance to actually get them back and schedule drops off once again, right? Now, I'm not talking about referrals, that's different. This is just cold leads. So we use benchmarks like that when we first come in. So the first thing we do is that complete audit we talked about, and we take benchmark scores. So we look at their lead flow, benchmark it, we grade it. We listen to their staff on the phone, we grade them. And then that gives us our baseline. And then as we progress through the campaign, we can, use metrics against that to kind of be able to grade what's happening. So I think another very interesting one is dental has one of the highest churn rates in healthcare in terms of patients coming back, again, on average. So there's a churn rate right now happening in dentistry of, upwards of 50% of patients that you lose. There's a lot of reasons for this, locality. It could be, changing insurance, going to fee for service. There's a lot of stuff going on there. But the other thing we really try to benchmark is, all right, how long is your average patient with you? Recall visits. How are you doing in terms of getting patients back in? Are you just using like the Dentrix or the, in the box solutions of, hey, you're due for a cleaning type stuff. And if you are, by the way, doing something is better than nothing, but customize those to the gills. Don't just use their out of the box solution where they're just basically changing logos and names and colors. It's not as effective. But anyway, that's another subject. So those are some key rural benchmarks that we try to use in terms of we have averages and where we really want our clients to go to.
Awesome. So if the goal internally for, ABC Dental is a 60% conversion rate, just based on your lived experience, what are some of the obstacles that you are aware of when you're listening to recorded phone calls, or when you're able to understand the operational inefficiencies at an office that lead to a patient saying, thanks, I'll call you back, hangs up, and we never hear from them again?
Yeah, a lot of the times it's training. It really is. I always ask clients when they're just we're doing a discovery call, rate your front desk 0 to 10 on how well and how qualified and how well trained they are to get a cold patient into the chair. And they usually say 7, 8, 9, 10. And then when we start working with them, it's more like a 3, 4, 5. And I don't blame the dentist at all, because typically they're in the back. They don't listen to every call. They don't have time to do that. And they have a good feel, as they're walking through, perhaps they overhear a call, but they don't really know for sure. Very few people in the practice actually know, right? So the expectation is, they're thinking they're here when they're actually kind of, here. So usually it's training. I just did a podcast on this where typically the front desk staff of a dental practice is the lowest earners, meaning that's the lowest paid employee in the practice typically, right? But then we depend on them to be kind of our front line for everything, right? So if we're going to spend $10,000 a month in marketing, we'll say, the success of that marketing campaign typically will come down to that front desk person and how well trained they are and how well that they can actually convert those potential new leads into actually scheduled appointments. So that's kind of the biggest driver.
Right. So that I totally agree with what you're saying. But let's just try to peel back the onion a little bit more. Is when we say lack of training, do you find it's lack of ability to answer financial and insurance-based questions? Do you feel it's lack of navigating the schedule and putting the person in the right spot? Or is it all over the map? What are you specifically seeing that's causing the obstacle to get the patient in the books?
It's everything you just mentioned, which are the easy things to fix, by the way. The harder thing to fix is the actual, and I know, but nobody likes the word sales in dentistry, but that's really what they are. They're sales skills, right? That's the biggest thing that I see is the gap there. Most of the people that we hire don't have any sales experience, and that's okay. But do they have the right persona, the right attitude, the right charisma to be able to take somebody off the street and quickly explain to them why they're the best dentist for them, what they have to offer, and why they need to schedule an appointment on Tuesday or Thursday at 1:00. That's
Yeah.
usually the biggest gap.
Yeah, no doubt. And I 100% agree with everything that you're saying in regards to that. I'm a data guy. I'm driven by analytics. Um, and it's easy to pull up a report and see what the call answer rate is. It's easy to access a lot of this data. One of the pain points that I've had with my own group and in the people that I coach is quantifying conversion rate. So when you say 60% is their goal and 30-40% is where most practices are, how are you, outside of the antiquated, like, well, let's listen to all these calls, how are you even generating that KPI?
That's what we're doing. We used to do this human. So every call that we brought in basically would be graded by a human. And we had a whole team of people doing that. Now AI helps us with this. It's still very much human involved. But every call that comes in that our marketing generates, or we can even set it up for the entire practice, we're able to use AI to understand a lot of things. So, like for instance, we have a front desk training that we give the front desk when they sign on as a client. It's an online, self-paced, really solid. We basically trained our AI agent on that training as if they were a front desk manager. Okay, and basically it listens to every call and it grades them based off of the training that I did. And then it kicks out okay, this is 0 to 10, how well they did here, here, and here. And if it shows red flag, that's when a human gets involved, listens to the call, makes any corrections because AI isn't perfect. And then we have that feedback with the client on, all right, we're seeing a trend here with Ron, who's answering the phone, because we can figure out who answers the phone so we can separate those out into each agent that answers the phone. So, yeah, it's a little painstaking, but it's worth it.
Yeah, but certainly less painstaking than it was 5 years ago. That's
man.
kind of, yeah.
Yeah, I got to tell you.
And is this code that you developed internally, or are you using platforms that are already out there?
Yeah, we're using platforms, but it's all about creating an AI agent specific for the task that you want done, right? Mm-hmm. So I think we're using. Geez, I got to double check now, but I think we're using the latest ChatGPT as our engine, and then we train an agent specifically, but it uses the GPT engine to do that.
Awesome. Pivoting a little bit, again, just referencing my own experiences with coaching clients, they'll routinely send me their marketing company reports and ask me to unpack them for them. And it's like a foreign language to me. And so I'm looking at these things and I'm like, I have no idea what this is saying. So I guess my question would be, when dentists who realize it or not are very ignorant when it comes to this stuff, when they get a report back from one of these marketing companies, maybe you do this for your particular clients, what are we really supposed to be looking at? Like, what defines success? Is it lead generation cost? Is it like volume of leads? Like, how do we look at one of these reports? Or said another way, what specifically should we be hoping to see on these reports that suggests that the marketing company that we're invested in and partnered with is doing a great job?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. You look at the only thing that matters, and that's revenue. That's the bottom line. So, we used to be guilty of the same thing where we'd send a report and, here's how many clicks you got on this ad, or here's how many times somebody saw this ad. And it's great metrics to see more internally, honestly, than anything. So you can see what's working and what's getting traction. But now we've moved to this kind of executive summary report. We're like, all right, you spent this amount of money. Okay. These are the new patients that came in from that. We don't get drilled down into each patient's revenue, but we know on average after working with them, like what a new patient is worth every year, essentially, and how long that those patients on average stay with them. So then we can drive real economics out of that versus just, you got this many clicks, this many impressions. Your dentist near me ranking, this is one that really gets me. Your dentist near me ranking went from 7 to 5 on this keyword. Yay. No, it means nothing. It really, honestly, and the other agencies are probably going to hate me for this, but it's the truth. The only thing that really matters is revenue at the end of the day. Is your new patient flow going in the right way? And then also the right kind of new patients, meaning whether you take Medicaid, that's what you want, or you want hygiene, or you want implants, are you getting the quality that you want for your spend as well? Those are the things to really look at.
So you seem like a no nonsense kind of guy, and not a yes man, and just to be fully transparent with my listeners, we've shared some emails back and forth, but this is the first time I've actually gotten a chance to talk to you, quote unquote, face to face. When a client of yours, challenges you or says, I was promised this, but I'm getting that, and you realize that it's a operational efficiency issue and not a lead generation issue, like how are you navigating that conversation?
That's a great question, and sometimes it's not easy. And
I bet.
yeah, it really is, and it's there's no like standard protocol of this is what we say. We try to be as professional and just empathetic, sympathetic as possible, and talk at historics. Basically, well, we had a very similar client like yours, same situation. This is what we did to fix this. I think that's what we should do for you, right? Versus more in your face, like your team sucks at answering the phone. You need to fire everybody, and no, that's not. We just try to have. Dentists tend to be very data driven and factual people, and so we try to match that when we speak with them. It seems to go better. But it's not always easy conversations because, sometimes these are even family members that we're talking about in some cases.
Right.
And when we start talking about deficiencies or lack of performance or, it can get a little dicey. So it's one case at a time. But overall, I would say that they're very appreciative of it, and they realize maybe not that day, but the next day that, they actually have our back and we need to hear this kind of stuff if we're going to actually move the practice forward.
Yeah, what a great answer. I love everything about that answer. Let's get a little bit more granular on strategy, right? So are we in a recession? Are we in an economic downturn? Who knows? But I find that a lot of my clients are trying to focus more so on emergency leads, same day treatment opportunities, as opposed to the 10-unit veneer case or what have you. So from a marketing company's perspective, if I were to tell you, Chris, I want to focus on emergencies, is it simply as like changing AdWords, or like what are the strategies involved to all of a sudden pivot and say, okay, we're going to get away from the comprehensive care and we're going to market more towards emergencies or more towards high anxiety patients or what have you? Like what levers are you pulling on from your perspective?
Yeah, so it would depend on the channel. Like, for instance, Google Ads, it wouldn't be too complicated. We would create essentially another ad group or maybe even another campaign that would only be targeted around emergency, for instance. So, like, for instance, they start a new campaign. It's all about emergency. All the ads are written just around emergency. All the keywords related to that is all around emergency. So that would be pretty painless to do. Meta ads, which are, by the way, really effective if you do them correctly. But meta ads would be a little bit more difficult because we like to use as much video content as we can, typically from the doc or somebody in the practice. And we would have to get some new video content for that, perhaps, if we didn't already have it around emergency. And we really try to answer questions on Meta, like some of the top, like, when is this really an emergency, right? When there's, gushing blood, or when I just chipped a tooth, right? What really is, that'd be a great content piece for emergency for Meta, right? So it could be a little bit of a lag there, but certainly nothing that's crazy. And, these iPhones these days, we have a lot of our docs just, get a little tripod and shoot a really good video, and then we edit it, and that's good enough. Now, SEO would be a little different. We would probably already be focused on emergency with SEO if you're doing it right, because you really want to get all of their levers. But if they really wanted to push all of a sudden on emergency, that's harder to do. SEO is a longer term solution. It generates great benefits long term, but it's more like driving a major cargo ship, versus a speedboat. Speedboats are your paid ads where we can maneuver those pretty quick and turn them on and off. SEO is like slower to turn around, right? We gotta feed it a lot of content, right, about it. There's more levers to pull with that. So that's usually how it breaks down.
I've been doing this for 25 years. And when I first started my first practice, it was a lot of postcards. It was a lot of direct mail. It
Yeah.
was even like penny saver stuff. I was just starting the yellow pages was just starting to kind of phase out of favor. I still have practices that are in very rural communities where direct mail and the penny saver or welcome wagon or whatever these things are called actually bring a fairly good return. As an expert in this field, what do you look for in a demographic to try to best determine, is it going to be a digital play? Is it going to be a mail, a snail mail play? Like, what are the things that you're looking at to make recommendations?
Yeah, I think you kind of hit it there. What's the market, right? That's really what we're looking at. We still have clients that run Facebook, Yellow Page ads, right?
Wow.
They're still out there. Yeah, and
Yeah.
they do all right. They really do. Now, what I will say, there's some times when we take on clients and we're like, digital marketing isn't the play here. Let's just make sure that the leads that are coming in now are being taken care of correctly, kind of move you up to the 20th century, if you will, or 21st century. And then let's look at some alternatives, like maybe local sponsorships, like sponsor a Little League team if you're a pediatric dentist, right? We'd love to do those. And we really work on SEO, that local organic play, because it can be quicker in the rural markets because you don't have 100 practices trying to be number one for the same keyword, right? So a lot of times, and we might run brief, paid traffic, very, if a typical dentist in a competitive market spending $1,500 a month in Google ads, a rural market probably would spend $500 a month. But we would look at more traditional means because we do have that experience. I used to work for the Yellow Pages way back in the day. So I still have a lot of that grassroots type experience, and direct mail could be another great play as well as handwritten notes. Those are making a comeback, by the way. They're not really handwritten, but there's like machines. I don't know if you've seen these, man. They're crazy. There's machines that actually has a pen in it, and it actually does cursive or print, and it'll auto generate letters all day, sign the doc's name at the bottom, and mail them out for you. And they look absolute like somebody actually wrote it. So there's still things like that at play. And in fact, I'm meeting with a company next week to talk about that, about maybe doing thank you notes for patients, like handwritten notes. I think it can make a big difference in today's society.
That's amazing. So, slight pivot here. I for the longest time I had what we would call a handwritten SOP or handwritten protocol, and it was a treatment follow up process in my office where we would ping these patients every couple of weeks, and then after 3 months, I would write a bunch of handwritten letters to these patients about their outstanding treatment, and nothing sold a case like that. Like a patient would get a handwritten letter, and it didn't have to be a book. It was like, hope that area in the upper left is not bothering you. I know that we talked about the infection. Call me when you're ready, blah, blah, blah. And it's been the heaviest lift trying to get some of my younger doctors to do this because they just don't even know how to write a letter. So, I mean, I
teach cursive anymore.
Yeah. So I was like, guys, you have no idea the opportunities that you're leaving, the meat on the bone, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I had no idea these types of printers existed. So that might be the solution to my problem is they can have AI generate the actual letter. And then we'll just have it handwritten like that. So, anyways, it's just a little tangent that, because my team is like, Jason, solve for this problem. And I'm like, I don't know how to solve for it. If they don't like to write letters, or if they don't even know how to write letters, then what do you want me to do? Anyways,
Right.
um,
Yeah.
we're blessed to be big enough where we have a marketing department, and the head of my marketing department, Morgan, I know it's a huge pain point for her for tracking referral sources, right? She's like
Mm.
constantly beating that drum of whoever's answering the phone, my call center, please, please, please put in the referral source, right? So she can do tracking on her end. One of the things that she's come to me with of is different numbers for different campaigns.
Yeah.
Where are you
Yep.
at on that? Like, is that antiquated, or is that still being done? Like, where are you at on that?
Yeah, so we do it all every day.
Okay.
There's actually technology that can help with this. It's called dynamic number insertion. And
Okay.
what happens is that we'll buy a pool of local tracking numbers, local area code and prefix where we can still. And we'll put that's Java code on your website. And essentially what happens is that when somebody hits your website, it can detect where they came from. So was it Google organic, or was it a Google paid ad? Or so it gets pretty, detailed. And depending on where they come from, it'll automatically change your local phone number on your website, right?
Oh,
So
wow.
that we'll know, at the end of the day that, we got this many calls from Google ads, and then we listen to those and like, all right, these were how many that were qualified. These are how many that scheduled on the first call. And we do that for each source. So it's a great way to do it. And you don't have to, you still should ask, on the phone, but tends to be a lot more accurate than just asking somebody, because they're like, oh, I saw you on Google. Like, oh, okay, we're not even on Google, right? Or is it a paid ad or was it organic? And they're like, I don't know, it's Google,
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, it works really well. We use a call tracking technology company called CallRail.
Okay.
Anybody can use them. There's a little bit of a setup and you got to know some things, but there's several other companies that can do, like What Converts, I think is another company. So yeah, there's a couple out there that you can set that up with.
Awesome. Chris, help me understand what I'm missing. What questions didn't I ask that
Hmm.
most general dentists should know that I didn't think to ask you? Like, it's some blinds. What are my blind spots when it comes to kind of pulling the wisdom out of your head?
Yeah, I think if I had one message, I would say be careful what you're getting into if you're going to hire somebody to do this for yourself. And the reason I say that is because we take on clients all the time that are typically now they're with previous companies and they're coming to us. And it can be a mess because there's a lot of dentists out there that think they own their own website, but they don't. Let's say an agency will sometimes build you a website for either cheap or even free. And you don't even think to ask, well, I own this, right? Well, you don't. You're actually just leasing it or renting it from them. So you've got all this, hard work and good content. It took you forever to get it the way you wanted. And then you go to leave and you're like, oh, I got to start back at square one, right? Also, make sure you have ownership of your Google Ads account. This is another hot button in the industry. If you leave a agency, a lot of times all of that Google Ads information, like the ads, the content, the historical data, is what they'll call all proprietary to them. So they won't let you leave with that. And when that happens, the new agency has to completely rebuild that campaign. And even though Google Ads is known to be quick and fast, it'll still be a month before you can really get that thing right where you want it, because there's a lot of tweaking and Google has to learn things, stuff like that. So, beyond that, I would say also be careful and just be sure that you know who you're hiring and that, you communicate well with them. That's the biggest thing, is that they understand you. They know exactly why you're unique. Why are you different from the, 50 other dentists in town? I think those are all really key things when you go to hire an agency that really will make a big difference in the long run.
Awesome. One final question, and I'd love to get your contact information. So if any of the listeners want to ask additional questions, if you're open to it. Um, Another question I get all the time from podcast listeners, coaching clients is, what percentage of my revenue should I be dedicating to marketing? And
Yeah.
obviously it depends on, I shouldn't say obviously. In my head, it depends on what their growth strategy is. Are they just trying to plateau? Or are they trying to grow 20% or what have you? So do you have like some frameworks that you discuss with your prospective and current clients about what the marketing spend is as a percentage of revenue?
Typically, it's 5 to 10% on how aggressive you want to get. But you're right; it's not it's different for everybody, because if you're in, New York City, that's way different than, Tulsa, Oklahoma, right? If you're a new practice, for instance, we generally say you need to be a little bit more aggressive, with ad spend, because you got to get this thing off the ground. But usually most dental financial gurus will tell you like 5 to 10%. We usually advise our clients of an established practice that are, looking to go from maybe 20 new patients a month to 30 or 35, probably about 7% is a good thought there. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for the time and for the information, for the wisdom. Answered a lot of questions for me. Are you comfortable with sharing contact information in case anyone wanted to reach out to you?
Yeah, and free of charge, hit me up with questions or concerns, and I'd be more than happy to help you however I can. My email, I'll give you my direct email. It's Chris, CHRIS, at kickstartdental.com. My direct phone number is, what is my phone number here? 720-934-1125. And you can text me on that. And also you could just go to our website, kickstartdental.com. And there's free strategy buttons all over the place. If you click and sign up for one of those, I do all of those calls myself. I know it sounds crazy, but I love to do it. You could just schedule a time with me too, right on my calendar.
Awesome. And the resource that you unpacked at the beginning of the call of ways to level up the admin team, people are answering the phone. How would I best be able to get that into the hands or inboxes of my listeners?
Yeah, I will send that to you today.
Okay.
And
awesome.
You can just put a link to it right in wherever you want.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for the time and for the wisdom. I learned a lot, and I know my listeners will get a lot of value out of this conversation. Ladies and gentlemen,
for having me.
You're very welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris from Kickstart Dental Marketing. Thank you. That wraps up another episode of the Dental Lighthouse podcast. You have a choice today. Choose to be a lighthouse. Lighthouses are powerful and steadfast. They are beacons of light for others to reference when life gets turbulent. Go out into the world today and become a lighthouse for someone. Give more than you get. True joy comes from serving others. Start today. I'm Jason Tanoory, your host. Thank you for listening to the Dental Lighthouse podcast. For more information, podcast show notes, or links to anything that we have discussed today, please check out our website, thedentallighthouse.com. We would love to hear from you. If you would like to get on the show, please email us at podcast@thedentallighthouse.com.